Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to give you that essential shortcut to staying informed without drowning you in noise. Today is August 16th, 2025. Welcome to your daily news update. And just quickly on Blip, that's kind of our internal motto here. Brief, small bites of info, but covering almost everything you need. Daily. Our mission. Cut through that noise. Give you the key nuggets from global economics, money markets, geopolitics, what's happening in India, and top it off with some cool science innovation. Expect facts, insights, maybe a little bit of fun along the way.
And there's certainly plenty to talk about today. Starting with the big picture, the World Bank's latest forecast came out in June. It's setting a pretty somber tone. They're projecting global growth at just 2.3% for 2025. To put that in context, think about it this way. For every $100 of wealth created last year, the world's only adding about $2.30 this year. It's the weakest growth we've seen in 17 years, if you exclude the big recessions. And actually, it's the slowest pace for any decade since the 1960s. That kind of slowdown, it doesn't just hit government budgets. It ripples through everything: jobs, the price of your coffee. Makes it harder for businesses to grow, harder for governments to invest. Hints of, well, tougher times for consumers globally.
That really paints a picture. So, yeah, it sounds like serious global headwinds are picking up. Where exactly are these coming from? And how is this playing out geopolitically?
Well, the World Bank points pretty squarely at two main things: rising trade barriers and just a lot more policy uncertainty. And you can really see this tension playing out quite visibly, actually, between the U.S. and India.
Ah, yes. The ongoing tariff tango. What's the latest move there?
Indeed. It's quite the dance. Former U.S. President Trump has been very vocal lately. He's threatening new tariffs on things like steel, semiconductor chips. And more directly, he just slapped an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods exports. And he explicitly linked it to India continuing to buy Russian oil. He even pushed for, this is his term, Pakistan-style compliance from India.
Pakistan-style compliance. Wow, that's strong language. So how's India taking this? Are they, bending under the pressure?
Not really, no. India sees these moves as, well, basically an infringement on its sovereignty. The IOC chairman, for instance, came out and said quite clearly, India keeps buying Russian oil because it makes economic sense. Simple as that. And what's interesting is the discounts on Russian oil actually widened again recently to about $2.70 a barrel. They had narrowed before that. Yeah. So for India, it's not just about saving a few bucks, right? It's about strategic autonomy, making their own energy choices. And it's not like they're putting all their eggs in one basket. They've been diversifying. Farad Petroleum, for example, bought 10 million barrels of U.S. oil over the last 5 months. So it shows this kind of nuanced strategy. Economic pragmatism, yes, but also signaling independence.
It's fascinating, really, how India is navigating this, kind of threading the needle. Any other big trade moves they're making to counter this?
Oh, absolutely. India is actively working on what they call 4 strategic pillars to boost their exports. A key part of that is pushing the UK hard to get that free trade agreement moving faster. It was signed back on July 24th, 2025. That FTA is really important because it would give India zero-duty access to the UK market. That could definitely help offset these potential U.S. tariff hits. And the goal for the UK-India FTA is ambitious: double their bilateral trade to $120 billion by 2030. They're also, very strategically, talking with China, engaging them for crucial things like rare earth magnets, fertilizers, pharmaceuticals. Shows a very practical approach, securing vital supplies wherever they can in these uncertain times.
Right. And speaking of global players and headlines, that Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, that certainly got people talking. What's the buzz? What's really going on there?
Yeah, that summit. The narrative around it is quite something. Trump seems convinced Putin will make peace in Ukraine. And there are these reports now, they're controversial, definitely unverified, but reports that Trump considered offering Russia access to Alaska's natural resources as a sort of incentive to broker peace. I mean, if that's true, that kind of proposal is incredibly provocative, speaks to a very unconventional diplomatic style. Putin, on his side, expressed appreciation for what he called Trump's sincere efforts. Adds another layer to this whole geopolitical chess game, doesn't it? Meanwhile, on the actual ground, Ukraine reported they've managed to stabilize the front line in Donetsk. That's after Russian forces had made some advances in the days before. Yeah. So it's still very complex, very delicate. Every word, every rumored offer carries a lot of weight.
Such an intricate dance of diplomacy and conflict. And those ripples definitely affect the markets. So speaking of ripples, what's the latest from the wider global financial markets? Currencies. How might that impact our listeners?
Yeah, this brings us back to inflation, which is, critical for everyone. U.S. producer inflation. It surged in July, highest level since 2022. Jumped 0.9% just month on month. That's a big move, mostly driven by services and food costs. And it definitely puts a damper on hopes for the Fed to start cutting interest rates immediately. Because higher producer prices, well, they often mean higher consumer prices for you down the line. Might keep seeing costs stay elevated. But on the flip side, for investors, global stocks, including in Asia and Europe, have actually extended their rally. In cryptocurrencies, interestingly, they soared, mostly on expectations that rates will eventually come down, even though Bitcoin itself dipped slightly in the last 24 hours. So it's this real push and pull dynamic, inflationary worries versus market optimism.
Okay, so with those global currents swirling, let's pivot. Let's bring our focus firmly back to India. Amidst all these international challenges, how's the Indian economy doing? What's the pulse on the ground?
Well, the Indian economy is showing really remarkable resilience, truly punching above its weight right now. The Prime Minister himself said it's strong, and the numbers seem to back that up. We're looking at projected GDP growth of at least 6% for India's fiscal year 2026. That's April 25 to March 26, which is pretty impressive, especially when you set it against that global slowdown picture we just talked about.
Yeah, 6% growth projection, that's definitely a bright spot. What's actually driving that optimism? What factors are making the forecast look so, well, robust?
A really big one is the proposed simplification of the goods and services tax, the GST. The government's looking at lowering taxes on a whole bunch of daily use items, potentially dropping the rate from 12% down to 5%. That can make things like ACs, snacks, even building materials like cement quite a bit cheaper for the average person. Now, this move is projected to have a revenue impact, meaning less tax collected of about Rs 43,000 crore in FY26. But the idea isn't just about making stuff cheaper, right? It's about boosting domestic demand, getting people spending, and that's a key engine for growth.
Okay, and foreign direct investment, FDI, that's always such a key indicator of confidence, isn't it? What are the latest FDI numbers telling us about how the world sees India? This is where it gets really interesting.
Oh, India's FDI story is incredibly impressive right now. Really signals strong international belief in the economy. Get this. India attracted over 81 billion US dollars. That's US $81.04 billion in provisional FDI inflows in the 2024-25 fiscal year. That's a big jump, a 14% rise from the year before. India also came out as South Asia's top FDI destination in 2024. And greenfield project investments, that's capital spending on brand new projects, not just buying existing stuff, surged by 28%, hit US $110 billion. Now, greenfield is important. It means building new factories, new tech campuses. It's about long-term bets on India's future, its potential in manufacturing and innovation. In fact, one of the top 10 largest global greenfield projects anywhere in the world in 2024 was in India, and it was in the semiconductor sector. That really underscores India's growing clout in high-tech manufacturing.
Those are seriously big numbers. So beyond just the total amount, where is this money actually going? Which sectors, which regions in India are attracting the most foreign investment?
The services sector is still leading the way. It pulled in the most, about US $9.35 billion, followed very closely by computer software and hardware at US $7.81 billion. So India's strength as a services and a tech hub is clear geographically. Maharashtra, the big economic powerhouse state, got the lion's share, US $19.58 billion. And Karnataka, home to Bangalore, India's Silicon Valley, was next with US $6.61 billion. Just those two states together, they captured 51%, over half, of India's total FDI. Shows you where the real investment hotspots are concentrated.
Incredible stuff. Okay, moving beyond investment figures, what about India's longer-term ambitions? Thinking about areas like energy, tourism, what's the latest vision there?
India is definitely powering up for the future, no doubt about it. Prime Minister Modi announced this really ambitious target: increase the country's nuclear energy capacity tenfold by 2047. And it's not just talk. There are 10 new reactors already in the pipeline. That's a serious commitment to clean, stable energy. Speaking of clean energy, India actually hit its 50% clean energy goal 5 years ahead of schedule, which is, frankly, remarkable progress on renewables. Then there's tourism. The FAF Conclave 2025 just laid out this incredibly bold roadmap, aiming for a $3 trillion Indian tourism economy by 2047. The goal, get this, 100 million international tourists visiting annually and 20 billion domestic tourism visits. These aren't just abstract numbers. They represent real strategic pushes for energy security and unlocking massive new economic potential.
Wow, quite the long-term vision. Okay, let's get a quick pulse check. Rapid-fire update on the Indian stock markets and any notable recent company results. Key takeaways for listeners, maybe.
Sure thing. So the Sensex and Nifty, India's main stock indices, they actually broke their 6-week losing streak. Closed basically flat yesterday, but slightly positive, so some stability there. And a lot of that resilience, it's being credited to retail investors. individuals. They're being called the D Street heroes, D Street being Dalal Street, India's Wall Street. They're showing real buying power, stepping in amidst the volatility, which is quite interesting. Now, company results. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but tells a story. Vodafone Idea, the telecom company, its Q1 loss actually got bigger, widened to Rs 6,608 crore. That's despite revenue being up 5%. Really signals how tough the competition still is in Indian telecom. But then you contrast that with, say, Muthoot Finance, their Q1 profit jumped an amazing 90%. 90%. Seeing that stark difference struggling telecom versus booming finance, it really highlights where capital is flowing, where the growth spots are in the Indian economy right now. Oh, and on a positive note for employees, Cognizant announced pay hikes for 80% of its staff.
Good news for them.
Yeah.
And any big IPOs making waves. Anything catching the market's eye.
Yeah, definitely some buzz there. JSW Cement's IPO is pretty large, sized at $415 million. That's a major player in the infrastructure space coming to market. And then Regal Resources IPO, it was subscribed 159 times over. It just shows massive investor demand. Plus, Swalia Food Products shares listed with a huge 90% premium on day one. A really strong debut, definitely cheered up the market.
Okay, great. So beyond the economy and geopolitics, what other significant things have happened in the last 24 hours, either globally or right here in India?
Domestically in India, there's actually some pretty good news on inflation. Retail inflation eased again in July, down to 1.55%. That's an 8-year low, which basically means your money's stretching a bit further than it has recently. Welcome news for everyone, right? On the policy front, the Supreme Court is going to rehear a case about stray dogs in Delhi. That's a long-running, pretty emotional issue there. PM Modi also announced a new high-power demography mission, likely to focus on population trends and their impact. And he launched the National Natural Farming Mission. That's backed by a big chunk of change, 2,481 crore, to promote natural farming, a real push for sustainable agriculture. Oh, and for businesses, especially in Gujarat, the Chamber of Commerce there has asked for an extension on the income tax return filing deadline. They're citing tech glitches and data mismatches, highlights some ongoing challenges with digital systems.
Got it. Covers a lot domestically. What about internationally? Any other highlights, maybe something a bit outside the usual politics and economics? Anything unusual?
Yeah, a couple of things. There was a pretty dramatic explosion in New York, rocked a neighborhood in Manhattan, thick black smoke everywhere. A bit of a scary reminder of, urban life sometimes. And then there's this really weird story out of Fort Collins, Colorado. Wild rabbits are apparently growing these strange horn-like things. It's due to a virus. Authorities are actually warning people to stay away from them. It's bizarre. A strange little headline from the natural world.
Horned rabbits. Okay, definitely didn't see that coming. All right, let's completely shift gears now. We love ending with this. In a world buzzing with big news, sometimes the biggest shifts start quietly, in science and tech labs. What innovation has really grabbed your attention this week?
Yeah, this one is fascinating because it shows how fields you wouldn't normally connect are suddenly merging and creating completely new business models. The story that jumped out at me was about TeraWulf. They're a Bitcoin miner. Their stock shot up 22%. Why? Because they landed this massive $3.7 billion deal backed by Google to host AI infrastructure. Yeah. Now think about that. This isn't just a mining company finding a new customer. This is a Bitcoin miner fundamentally pivoting. They're taking all that massive computing power they built for crypto, and they're repurposing it for high-performance computing, specifically for advanced AI models. And Google's putting serious money behind it, taking an 8% equity stake, backing $1.8 billion in lease obligations. It's a huge vote of confidence, not just in TeraWulf, but in the whole AI infrastructure space.
Wow. So a company literally digging for digital gold suddenly becomes a key player in building the infrastructure for artificial intelligence. What does that shift really signify for, the broader economy, how we think about industries?
Exactly. It completely blows up the definition of what a mining company can even be, doesn't it? Yeah. And it really underlines that prediction Sam Altman made, the OpenAI guy, that wealth generated by AI could fundamentally reshape everything. He talked about futures with things like universal basic income, just giving everyone a regular payment, sovereign wealth funds managing AI profits for nations, maybe even negative interest rates where you get paid to borrow money. It just highlights how incredibly fast sectors can adapt, pivot, redefine themselves when you have a powerful technological force like AI, plus major investment flowing in. The lines between industries, they're blurring so fast. And this TeraWulf deal, it's just a perfect, almost startling example of that radical redefinition of value in industry.
Phew. Okay, that was quite a sprint, but a deep one. Through the global and Indian landscape today, we've covered economic shifts, those geopolitical tightropes, seen corporate resilience, and got a seriously fascinating glimpse into the future where AI is just redrawing all the maps.
It really does underscore how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? And just how quickly innovation can shake things up, redefine whole industries.
Hmm.
Creates huge challenges, yes, but also just immense opportunities.
Absolutely. So, what really stands out to you from everything we discussed today? And as you look ahead, maybe chew on this thought. If a Bitcoin miner can suddenly become an AI powerhouse, what other seemingly totally unrelated fields might be on the verge of some revolutionary mashup that we haven't even dreamed of yet? Keep those thought gears turning.